So, folks, we have to talk about Graham Platner, okay? Because he keeps getting cooler, and every single time I talk about him, there's a bunch of comments that bring up some stuff that I thought I'd addressed on my channel already, but we'll address it again, okay? And I gotta say, it's pretty funny because there are a bunch of knives out in mainstream press now for Graham Platner, largely because he is the progressive candidate. You know, he supports Medicare for all. He supports, basically being for the working class in general on a wide variety of issues. He's the real deal. And mainstream media has the knives out for him and are running pieces like this one. Here's from New York Meg Intelligencer. Graham Platner's honeymoon is over. And it basically goes on to talk about the fact that something has been revealed. You'll never guess what they found out about Graham Platner. And it's like, okay, is it that he, I don't know, shot a dog? Like the governor of was it North or South Dakota? I don't remember. The person who's in charge of ICE now. No, it's nothing remotely along those lines. What is it? What is the horrible crime he's been committed? He's been accused of, right? So CNN, of course, did digging and came across some now deleted posts from Graham Platner's Reddit account. So number one, he responded to a thread about people becoming more conservative as they age by saying, quote, "I got older and became a communist." This is from 2021. In another deleted comment, in a thread about a black army lieutenant who was held at gunpoint and pepper sprayed by police during a traffic stop, one Reddit user wrote, "Bastards, cops are bastards." And Platner replied, "All of them, in fact." In another since removed post from 2020, Platner responded to a thread titled, "White people aren't as racist or stupid as Trump thinks," by writing, quote, "Living in white rural America, I'm afraid to tell you they actually are." And like, Donald Trump got a bunch of people to vote for him and he's president again.
Jack,
so,
I just got here. What's up?
Hey, Nathan, thank you for the $5 dono. So these are the these are the things that he is being accused of. He also, in a less cool fashion, used the R slur to call other people stupid, and also said just other colorful swear words. But like, I don't know. This seems pretty normal. Like, I'm not gonna say like I support the ableism or anything like that, but I am saying, like, politically, he aligns with the left. And I want to also talk a little bit about the fact that one of the issues that people on the left have had with Platner is that he was in the U.S. military, right? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what exactly that looked like, right? Because he's talked about this in a number of different interviews already. And essentially, to give you guys the summarized version of those interviews, he joined up right out of high school with the Marines. He served for several years. He came back to go get a college education. He felt guilty about leaving the people he served alongside overseas, so he went back. And then he walked away from that experience pretty traumatized with PTSD, pretty awful feeling. And so for 5 years or so, just kind of broken and listless, he floated from job to job, wasn't able to finish his college education. And then he decided to go back to one of the few skill sets that he had cultivated, with soldiering. And he signed up with a mercenary company called Constellus, which was formerly Blackwater, which obviously that's pretty bad. And this was in 2018. And he was overseas for about 6 months with Constellus. And it became like kind of the catalyst that radicalized him to farther left politics. He came back from that, hung up his guns for good, and began working as like a day laborer on an oyster farm, and then worked his way up from kind of just being a laborer to running the entire shebang, right? And so that's kind of his story in a nutshell. And a really important component of it is that he was radicalized by the experience. A lot of people, I've seen this in the YouTube comments of this, are like, he proudly served Blackwater. It's like, if you listen to any of his interviews about this topic, he actually talks pretty extensively about how it became the radicalizing part of his experience. Because, you know, a lot of people join the military right out of high school. You know, they view it as like a chance to see the world, to pay for college, you know, and some people, you know, they get radicalized by that experience quickly, and other people get radicalized by it slowly. And he was a bit slower than other folks. And maybe you can attribute that to a variety of factors, like the fact that he's like a straight white guy, you know, conventionally built straight white guy in the Marines. You know, he's not exactly marginalized in a wide variety of ways, but he did eventually come around to a correct position, which is that the United States military is part of an imperial machine of wealth extraction, and that a lot of the people and companies that surround that are merely siphoning off money from the American taxpayers that is supposed to be going to making life better for all of us, and instead is going towards enriching a select few at the expense of hundreds of thousands of civilians and, you know, the blood and lives of our soldiers, right? Like, when I look at this issue, I don't see, you know, well, yeah.
Some never do.
True, Sake Tanuki. Like, some people, you know, they just get blinders on, right? Tulsi Gabbard's a great example of that. But what winds up happening here is that, like, a lot of soldiers are also being exploited by the system that we operate in. You know, a lot of them are working class stiffs. Many of them never rise the ranks to, you know, be someone of note within the military. They are just being used for their bodies and their labor. And that exploitation, like, that has a radicalizing effect on folks, especially if they're paying attention. And Platner strikes me as one of those kind of guys. And I think that, like, it's pretty easy to be like, Blackwater bad, and like label him as that. I think that's easy, but I think that the more the reality and what's closer to the truth is that he, you know, he was trying to figure out how to live, and he thought maybe that could be the path to use his skill set, and it turned out that was, you know, almost like the apotheosis of just grifting off the American taxpayer. You know, like it's a mercenary company. You know, mercenary companies, more so than almost any other company on earth, are exploitative, right? And cruel and awful. And Blackwater is one of the worst. So all I have to say, like, I don't think this is a John Fetterman situation. John Fetterman was corrupted by corporate money. John Fetterman also had a severe brain injury that, like, seemingly completely changed his outlook on a wide variety of politics. I don't think that this applies to this man who's been going around the country on like a policy of, we need to help the working class, you know? And so all I'm saying is that, like, I'm not asking folks to have unconditional support for this man. What I am asking is that folks support the pragmatic best choice as we go forward, because we have only a couple alternatives to someone like Graham Platner. And those alternatives are essentially Janet Mills, a 79-year-old corporate Democrat who is awash in exponentially more cash and, like, corporate backing than Graham Platner could ever dream of. And then you also have Susan Collins, who's at the head of like a well-oiled Republican machine in Maine. And it's kind of like, well, at a certain point, if like this guy who's objectively better than both of them isn't pure enough, like where are you going to find like a guy to back? Like this guy is about as working class coded as we can get. So with that being said, I am aware of Graham Platner's past, and so is he, and so are a lot of the people who have interviewed him. I recommend people check out the Zateo interview. It touches on this, as well. There are a couple others as well. So all that being said, we need to understand what we're doing right now in our political worlds, not as seeking like the perfect outcome, because that will never come, but instead find the best outcome we can feasibly achieve and go for that. And after we achieve that, we look around for the next best thing we can do, and then the next best thing, and the next, and pretty soon you are taking steps in a progressive way towards a better future, right? That's the entire point. And I don't want us to miss out or to capitulate to corporate forces because we're hung up on purity testing our candidates.
Veteran here. Graham Platner's story of becoming radicalized is honest and mirrors mine. Leftists need to get over the hate of veterans. Uncle Kimrick.
It's true. I mean, like, it's true, right? Like, I've been doing some reading, and I'd recommend folks check out the documentary. I think it's called "It's a Good Day to Die," about the American Indian movement and its activism. And, that entire movement was fueled in part by, indigenous people coming back from having served in the military and being radicalized by the experience. Like, I forget, was it? Yeah. Dennis Banks. I wanted to say Robert Banks, but it's Dennis Banks. Dennis Banks, in particular, in that documentary, talks at length about being radicalized by being given military orders to shoot to kill Japanese civilians, right? And like, this is a common pathway of radicalization. And Dennis Banks went on to go and win significant concessions from the United States government for indigenous people across this country. Like, that is a common pathway towards more progressive politics. Not to be cynical, but this sounds very close to what we were all saying in 2024 before we gave the whole country over to Nazis. Can this really be different? Serious question, sorry. Well, I don't understand exactly what you mean by that question, right? Like, which part seems like that? Because are you saying like the comments knocking him for his past service or employers, or are you talking about me talking about being pragmatic? Because you got to be pragmatic. Politics is not like making your vote like a bespoke little special snowflake that's going to like perfectly represent you and your politics. It's about pragmatic action on who will lead and who will wield power in this country. And there's a big difference between self-expression and, choosing a best case option. Yeah, look, I'm not saying treat this guy as like the second coming of Christ. I'm just saying he's a man. He's a human being, and people change their minds. People grow and learn and become something else. We were saying how Kamala was the lesser of two evils, and voting for that was the best foot forward. Instead, no one voted, and the fascists won with that rhetoric. Well, no, it was one of the closest elections of modern U.S. history, number one. And number two, it's true. But that's every single election is voting for the lesser of two evils. It's all just a question of whether or not you can feel like super good because the lesser of two evils happens to perfectly align with your politics, right? Like every election is a choice between two different candidates. You're either going for one that is doing less bad, or you're going for one that you're not using that as your decision-making paradigm. I, for one, even if I'm voting for someone that I like, they're still going to be the one that is doing the less bad. If you're voting, for example, for a president of the United States, like, you're basically guaranteed whichever candidate you are gunning for is going to be like someone who essentially commits war crimes. That's kind of the nature of voting for the leader of an imperial hegemon, right? And I would suggest that people vote for the one that is going to do more good and less bad. There you go. Yeah, you don't have to like politicians, but you do have to like policy. Like, I don't believe that the way to getting people out to vote is by coddling them and telling them that their vote is a special super secret snowflake that is going to fix democracy. But what I do think is that it's a lot easier for people to show up to the polls when they feel like the person that they are voting for is going to represent their best interests. And best way to do that is by adopting working class policy. The problem of getting people to the polls is not on, frankly, people who are telling people to go vote because it's necessary to vote for the better leader. It's incumbent on the leadership that is available in the election to adopt popular policy. I'm saying that rhetoric seemed to help Trump win. Nah, that's bullshit. Like that, not like I'm sorry. Telling people to vote pragmatically is not what lost Kamala Harris the election. Kamala Harris's policies, written for her by corporate America, were what lost her the election. Her capitulation to Democratic consultants siphoning off her campaign cash, and like her insistence on allowing her brother-in-law, who was an executive at Uber, to write her economic policy. Those are the things that cost her the election. Not people saying you need to be pragmatic with your vote, because that's every election. Every election, people need to be pragmatic with their vote. So it's the work that needs to be done is on all levels. But when it comes to getting people to vote, just getting people to understand that their vote is not, it's not, you're not doing a piece of art. You're doing something functional in society.
Jack, I have two friends who refuse to vote because 2 votes can't make a difference. They can be insufferable. Do you have any suggestions?
I mean, I would say that it's their civic duty to vote. Like, do your civic duty. Doesn't matter if you think it's going to matter in the grand scheme of it or not. You should participate in democracy, because millions of people have fought and died for the right to cast those votes. Literally millions of lives have been spent to ensure they have the right to vote. Oof. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think it's very funny that establishment media is trying to destroy Graham Platner by essentially saying, oh, he believes in workers' rights. Oh, he believes in like everyone having health care. Oh, at one point in response to a story about police brutality, he responded that like he doesn't like cops. Oh man, the horror. Anyway, I think he's a great candidate. I think this makes him cooler. Like, I think this makes him like unambiguously way more relatable. And I think the fact that he's not perfect is good, actually. Because if he was too perfect, it would be
who sent that super
bit damaging.
About voting. I lost my school board election by 5 votes. Their votes matter.
Simric, thank you for the $5 super chat. And also, I will add, when it comes to your local elections, understanding who you're voting for and what they stand for is super, super important. Here in Minneapolis, we're gearing up for a mayoral election, and like it's super important that people be up to speed on why Jacob Frey sucks and why they should vote for Omar Fateh. Like that's really, really important. And that extends to school board elections. One of the problems here in Minneapolis is that the Minneapolis school board essentially throttles a lot of educational funding and support for teachers. And it's a really, really big problem. But that is only solvable at the local level by electing different people to the school board. Like, you need to get more people on the school board who are not conservatives.
Here. Congrats on the purple studio. It's in between red and blue like I am. I could grill with Graham, but Janet is a DC shill. Oh my god, I will vote. I will vote for Platner.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Meaty and Voter. Appreciate it. He's running in Maine. He is indeed Witch Night Melody. He's running to unseat Susan Collins. So, big deal if he wins. And also, just throwing out there, folks, that, like, you can have a huge impact on the local level. Your votes matter on the local level. You need to get, for example, like conservatives and you've probably seen them talk about it. Brutus Magnuson, thank you for the $5 super
Frey
chat.
is afraid of ice. Pass it on.
Indeed. To kind of put a pin on all this, I know I'm rambling a little bit. Folks, your school boards are really important. Who's in charge of, like, different aspects of your local government are important. And you need to go vote in order to get conservatives out. You've seen on, like, PragerU or, Ben Shapiro's, I want to say Wired, but I know that's not right. Wow. What is Ben Shapiro's? The Daily Wire. God. They talk about getting involved at the local level and running for school board and showing up to those meetings. And, like, that's a really big problem because conservatives listened. Conservatives listened, and they have gotten control of those different parts. And if you're wondering, like, hey, what about, wait, why are my kids learning that, like, lessons from, like, slaveholders about how slavery wasn't so bad in my local school? It's because your local school board is what sets the curriculum for your area, right? If you're wondering, hey, why doesn't my school have funding for, like, special ed? It's because the school board doesn't think it's worth it. And you can fix that by getting involved on the local level. If you're wondering, hey, do the homeless people in my area have a place to sleep at night during the winter time when it gets to freezing cold temperatures? Your local elections are what determines whether or not those facilities exist or are available. So for a lot of people, this is a matter of life and death in your community. So you need to get more involved in your local elections, folks. And I think by getting more involved on the local level, you can learn why it's so important to vote. Yeah, exactly, Hoi Polloi. Do you want progressives making policies for your local schools or Moms for Liberty? Exactly. All right. And folks, if you're interested in doing those things, you can, of course, learn how to get more involved. You can put !Discord in any of the chats and get a link to our Discord. Join. You can reach out to Gamergy to learn how to get involved with your local DSA. You can reach out to Dragonfly in the Discord, and she will be more than happy to help you get involved with your local Dems. It's super, super important, and it's really easy. You can get involved. Highly recommend it. And with that being said, we're going to move on.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, dating, plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard.